Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Catherine Devaney.
She saw the world and she wanted it all. What can I tell you? She saw the world and she wanted it all. What can I tell you? She saw the world like a silver ball. What can I tell you? She saw the world and she wanted it all. She wanted it all.
Hi, welcome to the launch of Adult Learners Week 2020. My name is Catherine Devaney. I'm coming to you live from my home in lockdown Melbourne, and I am delighted to be here. I'm always delighted to be here, but I'm particularly delighted to be here to be launching this extraordinary week. Now, before I move any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the many lands that we meet on today and their elders past, present and emerging. Okay, 1st to the 8th of September is not only Adult Learners Week, but it's also the 25th anniversary of Adult Learners Week. So woohoo! This year's theme is Renew You, and it is brought to you, as it always is, by Adult Learning Australia, the national peak body for adult and community education. So this week is a week-long celebration of events and activities that highlight the benefits of learning and encourage people to continue to learn or to re-engage. And that can look like a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people. We're talking about formal education. We're talking about learning in the workplace. We're talking about the skills that you pick up through volunteering and other non-formal ways, such as community learning and education programs. Adult Learners Week is about engaging and encouraging people to re-engage or engage with learning, particularly those that may have struggled at school or may have been discouraged for many reasons. I'm one of those people. I am a lot of things. I'm a feminist, I'm an atheist, I'm a cyclist, I'm a Melburnian, I'm a writer, and I'm also dyslexic. So I found out I was dyslexic like a lot of people do these days when their children are identified as being dyslexic. And growing up, I was always told that I was never going to be a writer because I couldn't spell, to which I respond, but I don't want to be a speller. And they would say, well, you're never going to be a writer because you don't read enough. And again, I would say, but I don't want to be a reader. There are so many people who are disadvantaged by our current system and empowered by what Adult Learners Week will be showcasing through all of these activities and all of these events. We want people to realise, no matter who they are and where they're from and what age they are and what part of life they're from, that they can get back on that horse or start learning to ride a horse for the very first time. Have a think about the many different pathways that may lead to people wanting to reskill. These are people like early school leavers, vulnerable or low skill workers, unemployed or underemployed, culturally linguistic groups, disengaged young people, people with disabilities, socially and economically disadvantaged people, and older people. Adult learning doesn't just help people get another job or get a different job. It helps them connect with community. It increases their well-being. It's fantastic for their mental health, and it gives them a purpose. I started running a writer's masterclass about 5 years ago. I've been in this kind of business for 25 years, and when you live like a bit of a carny, which I am, you have long stays where you thought you'd have short stays, and you have short stays where you thought you'd have long stays. I run something called Gunner's Writing Masterclass. I thought I'd run 2 of them, and since 2014 I have had over 7,000 people through my class. Now my classes are the masterclass that I wish that I could have gone to when I was starting and when I was stuck. So I've met so many different people from so many different backgrounds. And one of the things in my class is that there's no sharing. So people feel really relaxed about coming along. It's for all genres and it's for all levels. One of my gunners is a fantastic woman who has has had cancer and been living life with cancer since I've known her. She's recently started making ceramics, and amazing ceramics. And she started an Instagram account. I think she did a very short course, and she just loves it so much. I messaged her saying that I'd like to buy something from her, and she was just saying how much her mental health has just really lifted since she's been making ceramics. And she said, I'm having a really serious operation today, and I'm not thinking about that at all. All I'm thinking about is when can I get back on that wheel and start making some more stuff. So we all deserve to have big, meaningful, connected lives. And what adult learning does is allows us to realize that we are not who we were, we are whoever we'd like to be. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining us today. It's going to be a fantastic afternoon of amazing speakers. We've got incredible speakers and some great conversations. But without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce proud Ngarrindjeri woman, Keira Bain, from Towndy Aboriginal College for the acknowledgement of country. Welcome, Keira.
Oh. Can everyone hear me? See me? Yep. All right. Two things that you need to know. First thing, I'm out bush, so this background isn't fake. Second thing is there's a lot of animals out here, so you probably will hear the roosters because they always like to go off as soon as I'm doing something. So I just want to apologise for that because I can't get away from them. So I just want to acknowledge country first in language, but then I'll translate it for you, Mob. So Manina purni ngaki na mirna na mani ngana kirtu ya tu wari baini na adlaide lo warni punga tutakti no rakunku ngadu tampenti yartanga imparenti ngadu tampenti porkana bukinanku yalaka tarkarecha na Italianinku terndoecha nakara. So what I just said in Kaurna language, so the language of Adelaide where I grew up, is welcome everyone, how are you all? I actually said are you all fat, because we never had a word for how are you. If you're fat, you're good, you eat. So we associate being good with eating, you know. So I just asked if you're all fat. My name is Keira Bain. My language name is Yaltu. Yaltu means the pelican. It acknowledges my Ngarrindjeri heritage. If you don't know where the Ngarrindjeri mob are from, they're from Murray Bridge in South Australia. So that acknowledges my Ngarrindjeri culture, but also that I've been adopted into the Kaurna community because I've been speaking Kaurna language since I was 13. I come from, as I pretty much just said, I come from Adelaide, but my family come from Rauken, so that makes me Ngarrindjeri. I'd like to acknowledge that we're all meeting on different countries. I didn't want to name them all because there's too many. We don't have a word for Australia in our language, so I just said countries. So I just want to acknowledge all the countries that we're all meeting on through this virtual world, and I also want to acknowledge our elders, past, present, and future. Our elders are very important to us in our culture, in our learning. They hold all the knowledge. They're like our libraries. So I just want to acknowledge them and pay respects to them, but also to the Aranda mob for allowing me to speak language on their country. I've been asked to explain the difference between an acknowledgement of country and a welcome to country. So a lot of people get confused and introduce me as doing a welcome to country or an acknowledgement when I'm doing a welcome, and vice versa. They think it's the same thing. Basically, the easiest way to explain the difference between an acknowledgement and a welcome is you can only welcome someone into your own house. All right, so if someone knocks on the door, you open the door, you get to decide whether they can come in or not. And you allowing them to come in is like welcoming them into your home. Now, if you're not from that country, you can't do that. So for me, even though I speak Kaurna language, I can't do a welcome to country in Adelaide because I'm not Kaurna. So it's the same as if you were, Irish. If you're Irish, well, you can do a welcome to country over there. So that's probably the easiest way to explain the difference. Who can do an acknowledgement of country anyone can do an acknowledgement of country. So an acknowledgement of country is pretty much just saying, look, we acknowledge that this is the land that we're on. So anyone can do it. Another question that I get asked is, can we do it in language? Being a language teacher, I get asked that all the time. Can we do it in language? And if so, can we learn how to say it in language? It's actually more respectful, in my opinion, if you do it in language, because traditionally in our culture, you speak the language of the country you're on. So if you're in Adelaide, you speak Kaurna. If you're in Murray Bridge, you speak Ngarrindjeri. If you're in Melbourne, you speak Wurundjeri, I think it was. So that's sort of our tradition, our belief. That's what we do. So it's actually more respectful if you speak it and try and learn it in language than if you say it in English. So it's up to you on what you do and where you're at with that, if you want to attempt to say it in language or not. But there's lots of opportunities to learn that. So I'm going to leave that there with you, Mob. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you for joining us. It looks so beautiful there. I wish I was there with you and the roosters. The terms adult learning and lifelong learning really are very revealing. It makes you realise that for a long time, and still for many people, that learning is not something which is considered something that we do lifelong, and it's not something that we do as adults. We do it as children. Think about it. Once upon a time, back in the old days, which were not too far away, well, in the past, you learned to eat, to read, to write, to dress yourself, to cook, to clean, to ride a bike, to drive a car. And from that point onwards, if you were very lucky, you may have also learned to speak another language, play an instrument, get involved in some kind of sport and understand how to play it and to understand the rules. But once upon a time, when you got to 21, you got the key to the door, and that was pretty much it. That was the room that you spent your life in from that point onwards. It wasn't considered a normal thing. It was considered quite unusual to keep learning as an adult. Remember, there were even terms like, I don't think you even hear mature age student anymore, or things like night school. It's wonderful because of the democratization of information, which is the internet. Because we have the internet, the access to literacy and education has become so much broader. There are so many of us who can connect with information and groups and people who can teach us. The other day, I saw a friend of mine and I said, wow, that's a great scarf. Did you knit it? And she said, yeah, I did. And I said, who taught you to knit? Thinking that she would respond and say, my grandmother or my aunt or somebody I lived with in my early 20s. And she said, YouTube, of course, that's where I learned everything. And we had a laugh and said, YouTube's the new TAFE, which of course, it's not the new TAFE. Nothing's ever going to be as good as TAFE. But what it did reveal to me is once upon a time, where and how you could learn were locked away from a lot of different people, depending on your wealth, your location, your level of privilege, your level of ability, your level of mobility. And there were people who had a vested interest in that. The idea of being able to read or being able to write or get educated or be broadcast and have a platform. So be a columnist in a newspaper, be a person who worked in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, or you had a position in Parliament, or even for people who were clergy. Those positions were used to elevate some people above other people. And there was a vested interest in those people keeping information and education and access to those things away from the other people, because it gave them a sense of power. Of course, that still goes on, but it's so much better now than it was. And thanks to places like, organisations like Adult Learning Australia, we are encouraged on all levels to continually have a go at whatever it is that you want to learn to do. It could be read or write. It could be a hobby. You could want to do some woodwork or do some yoga, even learn to ride a bike. We are now living in a world where there's not just one road in and out of the village, which is education and learning and empowerment. There are now many pathways, and you can even probably parachute into these. As a dyslexic growing up, like I didn't know I was dyslexic growing up. I was told I was lazy and I wasn't concentrating and I wasn't trying hard enough. And I really knew that I was. So one of the things about dyslexia is that we're really good problem solvers. So from the get-go, I would be told how to remember things like my times table or my left and right, or spelling, and those things never ever worked for me. But because of my dyslexia, and like anything, there is as many different forms of dyslexia as there are dyslexics, I found out ways to get to the destinations. I would see the destinations and I would find a way to get there myself. When I was in prep, my teacher, Miss Power, was having a day where we focused on the letter T. And I was, 5, and she said what she wanted us to do is to grab our lead pencils and write the word tea, as in a cup of tea, on a piece of paper. After that, we were to pick up the glue and trace over that word in glue. And then after we'd done that, we were to pick up some tea leaves and sprinkle those all over this grey lead word, which had been traced with glue, and then we were to sprinkle slowly. So you can see fine motor, gross motor, all of the things she was trying to get in this, hopefully, perhaps 45-minute or hour activity with these 5-year-olds. And I heard what she said, and I understood what she said. So I just picked up the glue and wrote TEA, and then turfed the tea leaves on top of the paper with the glue word written on it, and kind of shook it a bit and then bent it until the tea leaves went back into the tea leaf jar. She wasn't that impressed. That was not the idea, but that's the way that we find our way through. So I've been a professional writer for 26 years now, and I was a person who I wasn't just dyslexic. I grew up incredibly poor, very disadvantaged home life, very dysfunctional home life. Went to the local school that people, would say you wouldn't send your dog there, but of course it was a fantastic school full of passionate teachers and amazing students. And but I was never that great at English, despite the fact I've made my living out of writing as a columnist and an author and a comedian and a comedy writer. I was never that good at school, and actually in year 12 I got 51% for English, so I only just passed, and I was the first one in my family. There have since been many more to go to university and to graduate with a degree from university. So it was quite astounding to me a few years ago. It was in November, about 3 or 4 years ago, that I got all these messages from a whole lot of people saying, something that you wrote has just been used on the HSC exam. And I said, I'm in Victoria, and I said, it's not called HSC anymore, it's called VCE, which is the name for year 12 here now. And people said, it's still HSC in Queensland and Sydney, and something you wrote is on the end of year 12 exam. And I was kind of quite thrown because I hadn't been told about this. But sure enough, a friend of mine's sister was one of the supervisors in the exam, and something that I had written was actually used on the end of year 12 exam. So suffice to say, I don't think I would have been able to pass the exam that something that I wrote was actually being used to assess people on. So I suppose for me, education and learning is beyond empowerment. It's literally changed my life, and it's changed the life of my sons, and hopefully further along that hopefully that education will in some way, shape or form filter out into anybody who comes after us. And I don't necessarily mean higher education. I'm not talking about going to university. I'm not even talking about finishing high school. I'm talking about for everybody around to see that there are many different ways to get to a place that provides them with a meaningful life, and a life that is worthy of them. And that can look very different for lots of different people. There are so many ways to skin a cat. And as much as I love cats, I am delighted to see that so many cats are being skinned in so many different ways. One of the things that really warms my heart is seeing people who struggled to perform at the desired rate in the traditional modes of schooling and education. And they thought it wasn't for them. They just thought, well, I can't read, or I can't write, or I can't run, or I can't ride a bike, or I can't knit, or I can't garden. And later on in life, thanks to things like TAFE courses, CAE courses, informal learning, volunteering, and neighbourhood houses, as well, of course, as higher education, they have suddenly realised that, yes, that is for them. And that there was nothing wrong with them. There was something wrong with us, that we weren't showing them the right way. We were showing them one way and saying that that was the only way, which of course is not true. Toni Morrison has a great quote, and I think it really sums up how I'm feeling today at this launch, which is, the purpose of freedom is to free other people. Now, joining us, our next speaker is consummate journalist, ABC legend and presenter Heather Ewart. Now, she's not joining us. She's made a video, and that will be joining us. But she was there in spirit as she made the video, and we're delighted that she will be joining us today. Let me tell you a little bit about Heather. I'm sure you've seen her on the ABC. She's currently the host of Backroads, but she's had an extraordinary career, 40-year career. She grew up on a sheep, cattle and wheat farm in central Victoria and wanted to be a journalist, always wanted to be a journalist. She loved reading, she loved writing, she loved English, and she loved to chat. Her dad knew some journalists, and according to these old 1970s hacks, these pale male stales, they suggested, and they did dominate Melbourne's newspapers and, you know, worldwide newspapers at the time. In the early 70s, they thought it would be best that she pursue another career that was more appropriate for a woman. Anyway, she stuck to her guns, and she has covered some of the biggest national and international news events over her 40 years in journalism. She's been a federal political reporter, a foreign correspondent based in London, Washington and Brussels, a national affairs correspondent, and the chief political editor on ABC 730. So that's pretty extraordinary for a girl who grew up in the bush, who was told that maybe being a journalist wasn't for her. She certainly showed them. So I'm delighted to throw to this fantastic video clip from Heather Ewart.
Hello everyone, I'm Heather Ewart, the presenter of the ABC series Backroads. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel right around Australia to so many country towns and communities. And what strikes me the most is the extraordinary resilience that I come across. People who are really having a go to keep their communities alive and trying new things. And that, of course, means learning new things. I have seen people in their 60s and 70s learning to play new musical instruments that they've never done before. People learning woodwork, people learning art, people teaching English to migrants, teaching young kids how to keep the bakery going and how to bake. This is amazing stuff that really keeps our country communities going, and I think shows that learning does not stop at school. It's available out there everywhere, in community centres, neighbourhood houses, men's sheds. So have a go, and this is a really important week for you all to focus on that. Happy Adult Learners Week, Australia.
Thank you so much, Heather. That's great. I'm now delighted to introduce the President of Adult Learning Australia, Associate Professor Annette Foley. Annette's worked as an adult educator for over 30 years in TAFE, higher education, adult community education, and the private training sector. She has changed the lives of people who are not even born yet. Her hands-on work, helping people get back on that horse, find a pathway which is right for them, has gone on and empowered thousands and thousands of people. And I'm sure if they could, they would love to let you know the difference that you have made in their life. She's done so much for Australia and her local community. She's also a mother, a grandmother, a gardener, and a horse lover. So I'd like you all to say hello and lean into the screen. Annette Foley.
Thanks, Catherine. That was a very generous introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm here. I wish I was outside, actually. Heather Hewitt, looking in the background. It's lovely to see the outside. And it's actually quite a hard act to follow, being after Heather Hewitt, but I'll give it a crack. So I'm here in just outside of Ballarat, and that's an hour or so away from Melbourne, and we're in stage 3 lockdown. I've put my good top on, but I've actually still got my tracky dacks on. So who would have thought that we would be in this sort of situation a year ago? So first of all, I want to say a personal welcome from myself to this national launch of Adult Learners Week 2020. Yes, I am currently an associate professor at Fed Uni in Ballarat, but I've worked in the TAFE sector, in higher ed obviously. I've done some work in secondary schools, and I have also worked in community education and mainly in regional Victoria. So everything that Catherine and Helen have said resonates very strongly with me. Some of the things that I'll talk to you about now will also reiterate some of the points that have been made already. Before that though, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the Adult Learners Week event wouldn't be possible in any way, shape or form without the support of the Australian Government, including the support of Liam D, Anna Hemmings and Jessie Bain from the Department of Education, Skills and Employment staff. I would also like to give a special thanks to Senator, the Honourable Michaelia Cash, who will officially launch Adult Learners Week today via video shortly. I'd have to say I'm pretty excited about this event, and I've been looking forward to it because we have some incredible speakers ahead of us. And we also have some performances. So it's quite a fantastic thing to look forward to, but it's interesting the way in which we're doing this online. It's quite an experience for all of us, and it's quite an experience for me to be actually speaking to myself. It's the only thing I can see, but I know that there's a lot of you out there, and I'm so pleased and thrilled that you could attend today. We all know that Adult Learners Week provides an opportunity to showcase and celebrate lifelong learning across the country. And we've already heard that lifelong learning entails a lot of things, from formal and informal right through to engaging with community and working with community. We know that adult learning builds people's capabilities in terms of gaining skills through ACE, in those accredited and non-accredited programs, and more broadly with learning through engaging with local communities, participating in community events, volunteering or mentoring people, like Helen said, participating in men's sheds, and more importantly, the growing number of women's sheds and women's groups, and taking on a program perhaps in a local neighbourhood house or a learning centre, or even joining the local U3A. And there are many more examples of how we can participate and gain capabilities for ourselves through this participation, but we also give back to the community. Indeed, adult learning plays a significant role in engaging people from diverse backgrounds, and Catherine has spoken about those backgrounds. Some of those might be vulnerable people who might be unemployed. They might be from migrant backgrounds or have low literacy, numeracy, and language skills. They might be young, early school leavers who are able to somehow, through incredible engagement pedagogies and teaching practices, be engaged by adult ed, which helps them pathway from being early school leavers into other opportunities or other educational opportunities. In fact, adult education in all its guises is available to all of us, old and young. And in that, it's an incredibly powerful form of education and learning. There is a common thread that weaves itself through in and out of adult learning, and it's a transformative thread that builds confidence, it builds resilience, and it builds individual capabilities. This year, Adult Learners Week's theme is Renew You, which promotes the idea that people can make a new start, they can refresh their skills, they can try for something different. And who would have thought that this time last year, when we were celebrating Adult Learners Week, that we would be doing it online like this, and we would be doing it post critical bushfires in Australia, and now with COVID-19 as part of our lives. This year's theme resonates significantly with those challenges, particularly in the lives of people that are dealing with COVID-19 and the fact that they have possibly lost their jobs. There certainly have been job losses, and there will be into the future. And there is currently some instability around jobs for people. Adult learning can play a really important and significant role for people during COVID-19 and post-COVID, to build that confidence, and at the same time to develop skills, give an opportunity to reskill, to brush up on IT, and we've learned a lot about IT over the last 5 months or so, and maybe even look at an opportunity to pathway through adult education opportunities into other educational opportunities through pre-accredited programs and programs that help and assist to bridge people into other more formal skills and formal educational opportunities. In turn, helping the post-COVID, if you like, modern workforce, particularly in the regional and rural locations. And we know that some of the most extraordinary work in adult and community education, lifelong learning and adult learning happens in the regions because it's situated within the regions, and people are essentially working with people they know, so they trust them, and that's part of the incredible work of adult learning. We know that adult learning can transform our lives. It's a transformative thing, we know that. And that Adult Learners Week provides people the opportunity to shop around, if you like, to have a look what's available for them, to have a think about how they might enhance and reshape and rebuild their lives at a time when we do see that there are challenges for us, but we also see that people are taking the opportunity now while they're at home to do courses. So they'll be able to, during this week, see whether there's something that they can bridge into, which will be incredibly important. With that, I now want to invite you to enjoy what will be a fantastic day. And as I said before, We'll have some brilliant speakers and we'll also have some entertainment. But before that, I would like to hand over to Senator, the Honourable Michaelia Cash, who will officially launch Adult Learners Week via a video. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome to the launch of Adult Learners Week 2020 and a celebration of its 25th anniversary. This year's theme, Renew You, encourages people to look at the possibilities available through adult education. The benefits of lifelong learning are wide-ranging. It can boost self-confidence, connect us with our communities, and assist us to be more adaptable to changes in the workforce. As we face the challenges of COVID-19, this has never been more important. The Morrison government recognises the importance of adult learning and the development of skills regardless of age. We have established the $1 billion Job Trainer Fund to give Australians access to free or low-cost training places in areas of identified skills need. The Job Trainer Fund will create around 340,000 additional training places. This builds on our existing work to re-engage those who may have missed out on learning opportunities earlier in their life. Adult Learners Week activities and events can put you in touch with the right organisations to take some of the hard work out of deciding where to start. Any adult education and training organisation can get involved in Adult Learners Week. The wide range of organisations and providers, from community learning centres, neighbourhood houses, libraries, training organisations, vet providers such as TAFEs, Aboriginal Learning Cooperative employers, men's sheds, community colleges and universities. This is an opportunity for you to make connections. To demonstrate and celebrate the different pathways students have chosen, the Morrison government has funded 3 Adult Learners Week scholarships to be awarded this year. These scholarships help outstanding adult learners continue their education through either a new learning pathway or continuing their existing one. I encourage you to check out the stories of some of the past winners on the Adult Learners website. Last year's winners were Greg, a young father who joins us today and who can now read stories to his daughter. Kylie, a former homeless mother of 5 who now has a really bright future. And Anita, a young woman with severe hearing loss who can now communicate using Auslan. Greg, Kylie and Anita are great examples of what can be achieved through the transformative power of education. To everyone getting involved in Adult Learners Week 2020, you're taking the first step in what could be a similar transformation. Whether it is making the time for yourself to learn something you've always been interested in, or looking at how you can take existing skills and turn them into a new career. To all of the adult education and training organisations, thank you. Thank you for your involvement in this fantastic event, and I wish everyone the very best in their endeavours.
Thank you very much, Senator Cash. We are about to launch into a fantastic conversation. I'm thrilled to be joined by Shane Fitzsimmons and Sean Sweeney. We're going to be talking about renewal through learning. So Shane Fitzsimmons, you will see his face and you'll immediately go, I know this guy, where do I know him from? He is Resilience New South Wales Commissioner, and he was formerly the New South Wales Rural Fire Service Commissioner. And he is joining us with Sean Sweeney, who is an advocate and Auslan interpreter who was the Auslan and interpreter during the New South Wales fires. So, hi Sean. Hi Shane. We've got the Sean and Shane show, and this is not the first time. You two stood side by side, making sure that we were all informed through what was our catastrophic bushfires at the start of the year, which I'm sure I don't have to remind you about. So, Shane, I'm going to just start with you. Your leadership helped navigate Australia through last summer's catastrophic bushfires. We relied on you. You didn't get much sleep. We trusted you. But you weren't always the respected figure that you are today. You didn't come out looking like that. At 12, this was not what people saw. You had a bit of a shaky start in life. Would you like to share that with us?
Oh, absolutely. Good afternoon, Catherine. Look, it's fair to say I was a little bit wayward in school and didn't probably align too much to the rules and the process of school. And I think so often in my report cards back to mum and dad, it would be, if only Shane would consistently apply himself, he's capable of more. And I was quite naughty at school, and I'd spent a lot of time in the deputy principal's office. I was very frequent recipient of the cane, as we used to call it back then, for not doing the right thing. And I think there was a period of time there in high school where I wasn't able to mix with other students, and I had my own desk set up outside the principal's office in the main administration building and have to have separate recess and separate lunch times. And in year 10, I wasn't allowed to receive my school certificate along with the rest of the year, because I was just not conforming to the rules and the practices. So yeah, it was a different time during school, that's for sure.
And Sean, your life kind of changed dramatically. You've grown up in in a deaf family with generations and generations of deaf people, but
that's right.
You only became an Auslan interpreter recently. So both of you have had this kind of, there's been this before and after point in your life. Sean, can you share with us your before point?
Yeah, look, most definitely. I did have a, leading up to, when I made the decision to become an Auslan interpreter, there was definitely different paths that I'd taken prior to that. And if you had said to the 20-year-old Sean, you're going to be on the national stage interpreting at the Royal, at the bushfires at the age of 50, I would have laughed at you. There's just no way in the world. But, learning the language and understanding the language is what's given me the confidence to be able to do that. And I've done all that in my later life and learnt it all as I've gone.
Tell us a little bit about your early life for people to understand the deaf community and what it's like growing up in a deaf family. They're not, they have a very solid community and a beautiful language and an important language of their own. It's a whole culture.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Look, the deaf community is a very small community, but very, we're very unique in the way we use our own language, and we have our certain ways of living. And look, the deaf culture it's a completely different area to the mainstream that we're used to today. For me, as a kid growing up, it's funny because I always looked at it as being normal, and but what is normal? There's no such thing as normal, and being dyslexic myself, and having deaf parents at home and speaking a different language at home to what I was doing at school, school was very, very challenging for me as a kid. And they've got one set of rules and one sort of way of teaching, and they sort of stick to it and they don't change. And but knowing what we know now in 2020, things have definitely changed with time and learning from one another. So for me, back in the early days, it was pretty tough.
Interpreting is very different to just social Auslan speak. Can you, I know this is a big question, but can you help the hearing people with us today understand the difference between just chatting away and interpreting, what that actually is?
Well, you've got a whole process to be an interpreter. You have to learn how to use, you're listening to one language, one structure, and you're reinterpreting it into a second language, which has got a completely different structure. So socializing is very general, very, common language. So there's a lot more forgiveness. There's a lot more time that you can play around with the language. And so there's no real strict sort of guidelines when you're socializing, as you do when you hang out at the pub or go to the hotel with your friends and what have you. And, the way you talk in a sporting setting, you don't talk like that in the university setting. So It's exactly the same with interpreting. So from a socializing point of view, it's very different to when you're actually working and interpreting from one language to another.
So where did you learn? Did you have to go, even though you could speak Auslan, did you have to go somewhere to learn how to interpret?
Yeah, I had to, most definitely. Look, I started at Petersham TAFE and the good old TAFE system. And that taught me a lot. And then from there, I joined associations and other colleagues, and just learning as I grew, and as the more interpreting I did, and exposure. Exposure is the key, really. And getting exposure to different ways of learning was really important for me to where I am today.
Shane, tell me about you and Sean meeting for the first time. Had you met before the fires?
Not that I can recall. And Sean and his colleagues, they were just such a reliable attendance, a very pleasant interaction. So often we would just pass, say good day, do the press conference, and then we'd both go back and do our different things, and ducking out into the media room where Sean was often there talking with other media reporters and things. We would often just have the odd passing chat, but certainly became very much part of the RFS family, part of the coordinated firefighting effort for weeks and months as we saw it roll out over this fire season, unfortunately.
Do you miss each other?
Well, I was growing a beard just in a few weeks ago, so maybe he's rubbed off on me a little bit, but I shaved it off on the weekend.
So Shane, you had a kind of a rocky family life. Your mother was pretty rock solid, but your father, you know, was a fairly challenging man. Tell me about how the fire service really was a turning point and set you on an amazing track, but also seemed to create a family for you.
Absolutely. I found with the volunteer organisation a real sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion, a sense of purpose. And there was a very strong friendship that became like a family. And I describe the organisation like one big family. And don't get me wrong, I don't know about you, but there's some members of my normal family that I can talk to every day, and that's never enough. And there's those that you catch up with once a year at Christmas, and you think, "Crikey, do I have to go through this again?" So the family environment was very strong. There was this sense of purpose, inclusion, benefit to community, but also a growth and a belonging, and some really life skills developed for me in that volunteer organisation around teamwork, communication, leadership, negotiation, compromise, making decisions, taking initiative. There was some really strong life skills there. And like I did when I left high school, I ended up doing an apprenticeship as an automotive technician, as it was referred to back then, also known as a mechanic, a motor mechanic. And I was part of the old tech system, which became the TAFE system, Brookvale Tech I went to. But when we started in the early to mid 80s as well, in the volunteer bushfire brigade movement, as it was then called before it became the RFS, there was a lot of dedicated, structured and formal learning in all sorts of technical skills around firefighting, competency with equipment, and train the trainers and all those sorts of things. So I found this real thirst for learning, for bettering myself wherever I could in an area that I was interested in and passionate about. But I also found much of my time dedicated to being a trainer, to being an assessor, to being an instructor, and helping develop and grow new recruits and new members of the organisation and community members to better themselves and be safer and more effective at operating as part of a team.
So there was informal learning and there was formal learning. Was there anybody who kind of stood out around that time that you went from the kind of this kid could probably end up in jail to he's coming good? In that informal and formal setting, were there teachers or people that stood out to you?
Absolutely. So some of my high school teachers were really strong and influential for me, particularly when I was doing agriculture and biology at high school. I really enjoyed that sort of area. I also spent time in work experience with the local national parks, but there were also local senior volunteers, community members through the brigade organisation that really sponsored growth and development and formalising of. See, remembering when I joined in the 80s, it was the first time the volunteer organisation introduced formal training and assessment packages. And at the time, there was a lot of resistance, and we lost a few members in the process of implementing that training package. I think it was more about the method of implementation more than the training itself. But absolutely, from the early 80s right through to today, the wonderful thing about the volunteer organisation is that all new members are put through training programs, and all those training packages are made up of units of competence that align with the Australian qualifications framework, which not only improves their functioning and their skills and their inclusion as part of a team in their volunteer role as a firefighter or a member of the Rural Fire Service, but it translates to their work life, to their professional life, and giving them units to allow them to get into other courses or be recognised for having this new levels of competency that they've acquired in volunteering for their community.
How did it make you feel finding a place where you could learn and feel proud of yourself? Because were you buying the feeling at school and amongst your, the people close around you that you were on the highway to hell, and then suddenly you took a slip road? How did that feel? Can you remember that feeling of learning and belonging and what that did for you?
Oh, look, absolutely. I enjoyed school. I had some really good mates at school. I really enjoyed the social side of school. I wasn't disciplined at all when it came to homework and assignments. And I just remember if I didn't hand something in on time, I'd get a detention. And then if I still didn't hand it in on time, I'd get a double detention. So I just kept going through all these processes, but I just couldn't be bothered. I wasn't properly engaged. If the subject matter was of interest to me, then I really found myself being able to get through. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I was failing subjects along the way. The disappointment and the criticism that came was I could do more if I applied myself, but I just wasn't there. But when I went into the volunteer organisation and got involved in training and personal growth and development, and then being able to do a role where I could help and support in the delivery of training systems, in the assessment of competencies and skills and growing in other individuals, I really found that I thrived in that space. And then because I did my trade straight after school, I came from a family that university just wasn't an option. It wasn't regarded. It was, very physical, work focused, and all those sorts of things. And there was almost a class distinction between university and those that don't go to university. So what I did find, even in my late teens, early 20s, as I moved into the motor industry and particularly into customer service, I then attended nighttime at TEC or TAFE as it's now called. So I did my trade at Brookvale TAFE. I then did night courses at Seaforth TAFE down there in study areas of leadership and management diplomas. And then later in life, as I've gone through, I've taken up the option for postgraduate studies through industry-based programs, and then more generically through some of the graduate schools of management. So learning is for me a lifetime journey, and it's about what suits at the time. And I'm a big advocate for young people, particularly when it comes to school. The default is not going to uni. That's good for some people. They've got their mind made up and they're comfortable with that. But there are so many other options for young people to do and to develop themselves and take them into an area of interest that matters to them. And if you are interested in what you're studying, I'm firmly of the belief you've got a greater chance of personal fulfillment, but also achievement with good results and outcomes.
Yep.
Mm. Hey, so Sean, what was school like for you?
Oh, yeah, well, school for me.
You were dyslexic, you were in the D squad, you were from a culturally different background, you had all of these amazing skills and talents and way of seeing, communicating that just weren't recognised in the school.
They weren't. Not at all. They weren't recognised at school at all. I was at school, it was, I was a bit of a sporty kid, so I sort of focused on the sport more than I did my reading and writing and understanding of what was going on in the classroom. And I was also the loud kid, having deaf parents that never told you to be quiet, you were always louder than all the other kids. So I was that sort of kid. And school for me was quite challenging because of the way the school curriculum worked. It was completely, it just didn't suit me at that time. But as you become an adult and you learn to you know, as a dyslexic, you have lots of other skills that you learn to tap into. And it's funny because because I've only just been diagnosed as a dyslexic 5 years ago. And my wife said to me, she goes, "Oh my God, you've got so many other areas where you learn." And I looked at her and I thought, really? Because I'm not a reader or a writer. I'm the complete opposite, actually. It's I go to audiobooks for learning. I use the voice to text process in the computer. I've learned new ways of learning, and in doing so, it's just empowered me even more, and it's great now.
How did it, what did it feel like to be identified as dyslexic? Was there a bit of an aha moment? I mean, because I would imagine that some of your kind of what was seen as an uneven profile as a young student would have been put down to coming from a deaf family. Whereas now
Yes,
you can
exactly.
probably separate that you came from a different cultural background, but you also had, you were neurodiverse.
Yeah, spot on. Well, that's what happened, is that I'd realised that it wasn't my family. It wasn't the whole deaf side of the family. It was actually me as a dyslexic. And I just processed information differently, and that's okay. And what I've learned to do now is just to slow it down a little bit and take your time. And time is of the essence for learning. And if you give yourself the right time and the right processes in place, you never stop learning. And that's what we're here to do, is just continue on growing and growing and growing.
So, Sean, I mean, when you were at school, you probably thought schooling's not for me, but you have gone on and done a whole lot of different things. How has education and training shaped you as a person? How you interact, how you speak to yourself, and the role that you play in your other relationships?
Yeah, look, I've done a lot of learning in the last 20 years of my life. But it's all around the deaf community and the society that I live in and the language that I use. It's something I'm quite passionate about, and it's all the courses I've been doing over the years. I've done so many short little courses, one-day workshops, online courses, it's weekend courses. I go away to conferences. I learn at conferences. I learn by talking to other interpreters, more experienced people. I tend to try and look for the ones with the knowledge and ask lots of questions. And I found that for me, learning is all about communication, and which is a really vital part of learning. And it's not just reading and writing. There's a whole list of other ways of learning.
So, Sean, you have done a lot of courses. You said, one-day courses here and one-day courses there. Do you do any teaching or training of other people yourself?
I do nothing formal. I do mentor a lot of young interpreters coming through. I work with them. I talk to them about the language. It's something I'm very passionate about, so it's quite easy for me to teach. And I know the importance of empowering other people, because if you empower people around you, it creates a better society, and empowerment comes from education. And it's a no-brainer, really. And so therefore, stuff like this is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Shane, what would you say to people out there, or I'm sure you come across people who are, I want to ask you both this question, who feel a bit stuck and they feel in a bit of a dead end, and that this is their life and they're stuck with it. So Shane, what do you say to people to encourage them to get stuck in, find something that they're interested in and get stuck in?
Absolutely. None of us are ever too old to shift. And as a matter of fact, I talk about that conversation with young people and not so young people who might be stuck in a rut, feel their and the fear of chancing their arm at doing something different is quite daunting. But there are transition ways to do that. We can link up through a volunteer organisation and get exposure to other things and other opportunities. The government's been pretty good or wonderful, I think, in relation to free courses to introduce people to TAFE and learning opportunities and learning modules or subjects of interest. I do think that one of the biggest challenges is the security of employment and income and servicing debt, which is natural, but it shouldn't be the biggest impediment to change and adjustment when it comes to not being happy with what we've got in life. Ultimately, no one holds you in your job except yourself, but having the courage to back yourself, learn a little more, take opportunities to get into one-day courses, evening programs, weekend programs. It can be hard. It does require a commitment, But if you're genuinely passionate about it and you're interested in a learning area or a field of endeavour, then starting with that learning opportunity gives you insight, gives you some knowledge and experience that you otherwise won't get, and it will position you a lot better to having a crack at that different area that you might be interested in or you might have thought about for a long time.
So Shane and Sean, you worked really closely together. Sean, I'm interested in asking both of you the same question. What did you learn from each other? Because it's not, I mean, learning and education is not just, you know, it is in the workplace and it is informal often and sometimes always for some people. You were working together. You were rowing a ship while you were building it during the bushfires. Sean, what did you learn from Shane?
Well, what I learned from Shane was, you know, if you're passionate about something and you present it well, you can do a really good job. And that's what I put into my interpreting as well. So I definitely learned that from Shane.
And Shane, what did you learn from Sean?
I would certainly reciprocate that comment, 100%. And what I would also say is the way we did the press conferences, the way we saw people from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, with different skills, with different focus areas, they came together as a team. And it's a reminder that no one individual, no one organisation can deliver the results that a community needs in the sort of crisis that we experienced. So having that teamwork together with people passionate, dedicated, professional in what they do, you pull that together, you hopefully then deliver the very best result you can. And I think in the public information and press conference area, with people like Sean and myself and the Premier and other leaders like Gary Warboys with police and my colleague from Fire and Rescue, we were there as a team sharing really important information as clearly and as compassionately as we possibly could. And I really hope in the whole process that's exactly what came through. We were trying to be very honest and candid, but very considerate to what was unfolding and what was affecting people right throughout that period of time, which, as we know, went on for many, many months.
Sean, have you got anything to add to that?
I just want to totally 100%. The teamwork that happened in that time frame was just phenomenal, and really the work that was presented on the broadcasts and the amount of work in the background didn't really indicate how much work was done on the TV, because the work in the background was just incredible. It really was. So that's the passion that you get from understanding your role and understanding what you're delivering.
I'd like to ask you a question about the people in your past, and Shane, I might ask with you, like the people in your family before you who pivoted to help set a good example for you about finding another way and finding another path. So Sean, I'd like you to have a think about people in your past who might have set a great example doing that. Shane, your mum comes to mind.
Yeah, look, she was an extraordinary woman, and in the day, being a single mother raising 3 children back in the 70s, it was a tough gig, and things like family support and payments and all those, they didn't exist back then like they do now. But I had the benefit of parents that had an extraordinary work ethic, and we were always brought up as children. You never judge anybody for what they do as a role or having a job. The biggest focus is all jobs matter. And as you were just talking to Sean and I, we had different jobs in this massive team effort that unravelled in the last 6 months or 12 months ago during the fire season. We've all got to take our role seriously and wake up every day knowing that we're going to go and earn a quid, and whatever our job is, we're going to make a difference somehow. So really strong work ethic, bettering ourselves as much as we can. But as I often say, I think authenticity matters. Know and understand who we are and what our limitations are, and where we can, don't pretend to be something we're not, but absolutely seek to be a better you. And you get that through learning. You get that through education. You learn and get influenced by others around you. And when we've got mentors and we've got others that we work with, I think it's important not only to learn the things that we admire and want to emulate, but also take stock of the things that we say, geez, I don't like that characteristic, or I'm going to make sure I don't emulate that sort of behaviour as I go through life. So I think learning from others, learning from family and loved ones, but learning from people in the workplace, people we see on TV, and trying to better ourselves, but being true to ourselves and not pretending to be something that we're not, builds authenticity, and that builds trust and confidence internally and with the people around us.
Did you see, Shane, any adults transform as a young child or a teenager, and that you thought they were going down, you thought they were one person, but then they took another track to better themselves or to make themselves happier? I mean, I know that adult learning, we're talking about adult learning and education, but I also see this, these kind of transformations on a personal level for people with substance abuse, people with mental health issues, even people getting out of relationships. These things are learning as well in some way, shape or form. And these things are often what lead people to search out that TAFE course or to join in their neighbourhood house or go back to school. But also these things like yoga and, hobbies
Absolutely.
and gardening, and just that community feeling and becoming a part of a group where they can reinvent themselves. Is there have you got any stories that come to mind that you saw growing up?
Oh, Catherine, I can say through my time with the Rural Fire Service, growing up there from a teenager right through till only earlier this year, 70-odd thousand volunteers, 1,000 staff approximately. You see stories like that all of the time, and some of the most powerful stories for me, as gathering volunteers at a community level, the idea is to get that membership of the local brigade reflective of that local community. And in our local community, we come from all different backgrounds. And you know what? Not all of us have got a strong education. Not all of us can read or write. But when we've got people coming in and they're passionate about making a difference in their community, and I see them take on board the training program, and we do it in such a way that doesn't expose the weaknesses of literacy or what have you, but take him on a journey of education, of practical learning, and assessment on completion of tasks and those sorts of things. When you give some of those young people, and dare I say it, not so young people, certificates of completion, which have got national units of competency, for some people, it's the first ever formal certificate of completion or qualification they've ever received. And some of the most powerful programs we did with our staff, particularly in the late 90s, early 2000s, when we inherited a lot of staff from local government, we had a big formal skills deficit between qualifications and roles that were being fulfilled. And I remember some of the staff members, men and women alike, who were doing TAFE courses and targeted program through some of our regional TAFE networks, were getting completions in their diplomas or advanced diplomas in management or leadership. And they were pretty emotional because they were now graduating at the same time as their children or their grandchildren were from TAFE or university. And that's the first time. And they were absolutely fearful of undertaking that sort of training, but they got through it and they did really, really well.
That would be, like, I'm getting goosebumps hearing you talk about that, because I think that for a lot of us, we see this idea of these crepe paper banners that we run through, finishing, now it's finishing kinder, finishing primary school, finishing high school, graduating, or, finishing your apprenticeship, getting married, all of those kind of things. And for many people, they missed out on those peacock moments of running through the crepe paper banner and everyone applauding them. So to hand them what may be one of the first certificate of completion that they've ever got, that would be quite transformative. Sean, can you think of any transformations that you saw growing up as a child or a teenager, or ones that you've experienced around you?
Yeah, look, the transformations I saw growing up were mainly in the deaf community, and I got to see deaf people. The more deaf people gained access to education through interpreters or through closed captions and all the different ways of learning, I've seen a lot of deaf people just grow and grow and go on their own journeys and achieve a lot in their lives. So a good education is really, really important, and especially for the minority groups, because they tend to get left out. And I'm only sharing from my experience with the deaf community, is that, if we can empower people with education, then they can go on and do whatever they want to do, and they can achieve what they need to achieve and have a life fulfilled of just being happy because they've been educated properly.
Sean, what's the advice you would give your younger self? I know that's a bit of a cheeky question, but I'm sure that like you're standing before us as an accomplished man, a friend, a relative, sounds like you're a partner, you've a son, and all of those things. But it wasn't always like this. If you can kind of go back to those moments where you thought, I'm not good at this, or I'm just going to end up taking the life that I'm kind of handed as opposed to the one that I choose. What's the advice you'd give to that young fella?
Listen to your grandfather.
Really? What did your grandfather say?
Well, my grandfather was a deaf man as well. So I just, there was a lot of things that I would have learned from him. And I've just listening to the elders in my family, just people who are older than me and really taking on board what they were actually trying to say to me instead of thinking that I knew more than what they did. And so my younger self, I definitely tried to learn things my own way. I think I did it the hard way. And I wish I had listened to my grandparents or my dad and my grandfather, just things like that. So most definitely listen to the grandparents.
Shane, what would you have said to that young fella who was, just sitting outside on his own desk, outside, as an outsider, not fitting in, fitting in when the subjects kind of set you alight, but if they didn't, just got doubled attentions? What would you say to that little fella?
It's funny, I have asked myself this a bit, Catherine, and I think that the key message is your future is genuinely in your hands. Your background, your approach, your environment, you can make decisions to get through. And I would say to my younger self, knuckle down and just do your best at whatever the environment is, and realise that learning doesn't stop at school. School is not the only learning environment. It's important to complete whatever you can at school, but no, there are plenty of other learning opportunities along the way. And like Sean, listen to your elders, listen to the wisdom that surrounds you. Don't be dismissive. And how you choose to live your life is ultimately your decision. By learning what's going on in and around you and taking advantage of those learning opportunities while you're at school, and most importantly, what comes thereafter.
So before I throw to Shane to announce the Adult Learners Week 2020 scholarship winners, I want to know, Shane and Sean, what is something you'd like to learn, or what are you learning at the moment? Are you getting into exercise, gardening, music? Sean, what are you into apart from beard growth?
Well, I'm in the process of becoming a volunteer on the marine rescue at Jervis Bay. So I'm really keen to learn how to drive boats. So that's what I'm on my.
Hey, explain to me, what does that look like? So marine rescue, who are you rescuing? Are you rescuing
boats, boaties, people who break down out in the middle of the bay and who break down out at sea. We go out and rescue them and bring them back in. So there's an organisation called the Marine Rescue, and I joined it, and I'm really looking forward to learning how to, drive boats and go from there.
What got you interested in that?
Well, I'm going to move down to the south coast, so I'm going to live right near Jervis Bay, so that's why I'm going to learn.
Well, good for you. You'll be able to contribute there, out on the ground, on the earth, and out there in the water. Yep. Shane, what are you learning at the moment? Bit of macrame, bit of cooking. Did you do a bit of sourdough during the start of the COVID nonsense?
Look, I do remember doing macrame when I was back at one of those school holiday camps that we used to do at the local school there. But no, now my biggest focus is learning about this new agency, Resilience New South Wales, what it really means for government, what it's going to mean for the people of New South Wales. We've got a significant amount of work going on across the state at the moment with recovery, repair, healing, and rebuilding. It's a pretty significant body of work. I'm learning a lot about recovery and healing and what it means to different communities right up and down the ranges and impacted areas of New South Wales. And there's a lot of work going on in terms of firming up and confirming what the new Agency of Resilience New South Wales is. I started here on the 1st of May, having finished up at the end of April with the RFS, so still in a big learning phase at the moment, and how we're going to work across government, through government, with local communities to help them on this really difficult process.
Difficult but incredibly rewarding. I'd love to speak to you in a year. I'd love to speak to you in a year, and for you to be able to tell the stories of people stepping up to the challenge and I don't know, getting to the best possible place with the least amount of damage. It's a tricky time, but you know, humans are pretty awesome, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And as Sean and I over that last fire season, day after day, week after week, month after month, we saw firsthand the reports and the images on our TV, you know, the very worst of Mother Nature and all the destruction, the damage, the despair and the tragedy that can bring. But at the same time, we saw an extraordinary outpouring of humanity, a genuine and sincere flood of love and care and compassion and generosity, not just for the frontline workers that were out there every day, standing up day after day, week after week, month after month, day and night, but also the generosity to helping people that were being disaffected, losing their livelihoods, losing their business, losing loved ones. We saw the worst of tragedies with the loss of volunteer firefighters, how the community rallied together. I'll never forget visiting areas and attending funerals and seeing this genuine outpouring of love and compassion and support and generosity through fundraising and what have you. It really lifts your spirits that when the chips are down, and we're seeing that now continue through the compounding effect of COVID on top of all of those impacted areas of drought and bushfires. And it's that sincerity and humanity to lend a hand and make a difference and genuinely come together when things are going tough, that really appeal to this new role, Resilience New South Wales, the big focus on recovery and better preparing ourselves into the future. So absolutely, no matter what we're talking about, it all comes back to people and how we're going to learn off each other, interact with each other and support each other, particularly during these difficult times.
Yep. It's a crazy old year, this one. We didn't think it could get much worse. You know, when you two first met each other, you must have thought, oh, wow, this is just, you know, when we get through this, it'll just be rainbows and puppies and lollipops. And it's like, yep, get down to Melbourne. I'd like you, can everybody thank Shane and Sean, and I'm delighted to throw to Shane, who is going to announce the Adult Learners Week 2020 scholarship winners. Over to you, Shane.
Thank you, Catherine. And it is absolutely my honour and privilege to be able to announce the 2020 scholarship winners. And the three winners are Gazelle Sahani, Chris Rowland, and Lauren McKean. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Very well done and very well deserved.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Sean. It's been great having you aboard. And now we're going to get to speak to Giselle, Chris, and Lauren, who are the winners of the scholarships, and find out a little bit about their extraordinary journeys. We might start with Lauren. Hey, Lauren. Chris, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Not bad, yourself?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know a little bit about you, and the number 12 comes up a lot. You left school at 12 years old. You spent 12 years in a violent relationship, which left you with an acquired brain injury, and you are the sole carer of 3 children with a disability. But 12 months ago, something kind of amazing happened to you. We'd love you to share your story. What happened 12 months ago?
I started at TAFE. I left a domestic violence program. I was in there for 17 months and I did a lot of education there, and basically got encouraged to go to TAFE and study women's education. And yeah, a year ago I started there and I've loved it. Totally different person now.
Tell me who encouraged you.
Was actually one of the caseworkers at the domestic violence shelter. So we did a lot of education around domestic violence, learning that it's not personal to you, it's society and it's a pattern.
Yes.
And from there, because I enjoyed that so much, she said you would probably love women's education and encouraged me to go into that. And then another friend of mine who also came to study TAFE, who's graduated now, I did my DV journey with her. And yeah, she was encouraged to do this. And yeah, from day one of who you are to who you are now is you're completely different.
So how did you feel about returning to study? Because you hadn't been in a kind of a classroom or school environment since you were 12. That must have been taken a huge amount of courage.
Yeah, well, it started off where I had to catch a bus because I couldn't afford to basically pay for car parking in the city. And prior to that, I would pull up to a doorway and be as close as a doorway in a car as I could for my safety issues. And day one of TAFE, I thought I've got to go and catch a bus. I've got to walk through the city. Day one, I had a hoodie on, I had sunglasses on. I stopped about 10 times on the way to TAFE because I could hear footsteps behind me and I didn't feel safe. But I thought my mission was to just get there on day one. And yeah, once I actually got to TAFE, it was a very different atmosphere. I was safe. I studied with all women, so it wasn't an issue being unsafe.
So tell me about the people in your classes and the teachers that you've met in over the last 12 months.
Yeah, all my lecturers are fantastic. The same as all your classmates, they're like sisters, so everyone helps each other. A lot of the women have come from the same background, dealt with a lot of issues. We've all got kids. We juggle sort of kids schooling, sometimes leaving class because they're sick at school and we've got to leave. So yeah, we sort of help each other. We adapt and film things so we can watch things later at night or in our own time.
Sounds like you found some friends for life there.
I have, yeah.
So you've learnt how to study and how to complete tasks, and you're on the road to continuing your education. What have you learnt about yourself as a person, like the person on that first day of study and this person 12 months later who's received an award?
Yeah, it's very empowering actually. Yeah, when I first started, I didn't have faith that I could actually stick it out. So, and I didn't have a lot of faith in my learning, my brain. So I thought I'll set myself a goal where I'll do one semester. If I do well and I cope with that, because I've got to cope with therapy, my children, doing homework at night. It's not just coming to TAFE, it's being able to do the work in general. Yeah, and after my first semester, I actually got the bug for learning and I don't want to stop now.
What do your kids make of it?
They actually said to me, why do you go back to school, Mum, when you don't have to? And I said, well, I'm worth more than sitting at home doing the dishes. Plus, being that they've got disability, I said, I've got brain injury too, but to me, it's not, I don't see it as a disability. You've got a different ability. So I've got the same ability as anyone else to learn. I just have to do it in a different way that my brain copes with.
So we'd love for you to share with us your future goals. Like 12 months in, the world's kind of your oyster. It might be your flake and 2 potato cakes and a couple of dimmies. What are your future goals?
I did actually want to be a art therapist because I do volunteer art therapy now with people, but I've changed my path. I wouldn't mind actually working in the domestic violence field or volunteering there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rush off in so many years to get a job, being that my kids have got disability. I may need to care for them for longer. But I wouldn't mind even going into community services and completing Certificate 4 in that as well. So I've got women's advocacy and community services from there.
Fantastic. So what does winning this scholarship mean to you?
it means the world to me, actually. I struggle a lot financially, having the 3 kids with disability. When I fled DV, I lost a lot of money, nearly lost my home, so I've had to rebuild. So week to week, you have to buy like a couch or a fridge, basic cutlery again, so there wasn't a lot of money for learning. So yeah, this means takes the edge off, the stress off.
You're setting an amazing example and you're really inspirational. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for joining us and congratulations again. Lauren in Wonthaggi. Hi, Lauren. Congratulations to you. Can you hear me? I think you may be on mute, Lauren. Hi, there you are. Look at you. Aren't you gorgeous? I can see the whiteboard behind you. Congratulations. You arrived in Wonthaggi with a car, a baby, and a couple of bags of clothes. That sounds like a country and western song. Lauren, I can't hear you. Have you unmuted yourself in the corner on the screen?
Yep.
Oh, there you are.
Yep.
Gotcha. Great.
Got a technical hitch going on here.
Hey.
Yeah, it's
But Lauren, we've had very few technical hitches. We've had almost, I don't think we've had any so far. So you can have as many technical hitches as you want.
Excellent. Well, I'd be the person that'll happen.
Yeah. So tell us about, so you arrived and you picked up a brochure. Tell us about picking up a brochure when you arrived in Wonthaggi.
Yeah, well, like I said, I come from Queensland to Victoria with not much. I actually just come with a car seat and a suitcase and my daughter. And I didn't think I was, going to follow anything or pursue anything else. I was just going to be a stay-at-home mum. And, I got through my parents' next provider and they said, oh, well, we have a brochure here. Would you be interested? And I sort of went, oh, my life's pretty hectic right now. I don't think I can do something like this. And she goes, no, have a look, see if you like something in there and we'll go from there. And I seen that there was a Cert 2 in horticulture and I have quite a lot of background farming in cane farming. And I thought, well, it's right down my alley and I think it's, it's possible to do this. So I just, sort of worked my way through it and contacted the Bass Coast Adult Learning Centre and to see whether it was possible, if I can afford it, was another thing as well, and to find out that I could pay it off and that they were going to be really accommodating the fact that I was a single mum and I didn't really have a lot going for me at the time. So they really helped me get on track, and yeah, that's how it all started, from a brochure really and some help from the school.
So you already had quite a lot of skills and education in this area. Did you kind of think there wasn't much for you to learn doing, like you could get a qualification, but you kind of, would have gone in going, oh, I'm going to know a lot of this stuff. Tell me about what you thought you'd learn and what you actually learned, what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, I thought, I did quite a fair few years, probably over 10 years of the cane industry and cane farming. I thought I knew the ins and outs of plants and soil and all that sort of thing. So I was a little bit like, am I sort of repeating some education here? I wanted to sort of go further. But it turns out that Adrian, our Cert 2 horticulture teacher, is he's pretty good at what he does, and he's opened a whole new world that I didn't even realise was there. And I'm sort of scrapping the old school farming ways. So I learned a lot about, permaculture and, organic farming, and, we would just spray everything and rip ground and, so there was quite, extensive knowledge that he had to teach me. So I was really amazed, actually. It was a whole new world, and here I was sort of walking in thinking I knew it all. So, it was, I'm really happy with the way that the courses turned out, and I learned quite a fair bit, actually.
How long did it take you to do the course?
I think it was about 6 months to do it all up, but I had quite a lot of help. So there was, you know, a lot of homework and things like that to sort of catch up, because I have a little one at home and it was hard to balance. But yeah, so it was quite, yeah, it was about 6 months. So it's, yeah, it wasn't too bad at all.
So did you, hey, so Lauren, did you surprise yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you surprise yourself?
Well, the fact that I really walked into this like I can't do it. I was, you know, single mums, they stay at home, they raise children, they cook, they clean, they, you know, until your child is much older, then you start following dreams, and then you start getting education sorted and things like that. So I didn't think I was gonna make it, but it's yeah, it's all proved me wrong. So I stuck at it and worked hard, and yeah, so here I am.
So, yeah, but it's not just here you are. You learned skills and you have given back to your community. Please share with us how you've given back.
Yeah, so like I said before, I come along with nothing. I know what it's like to be on the food line as such, and I thought, well, I got on my feet, I got myself a house, and you know, put some money away and worked really hard at it. And I was, you know, a bit of a workaholic beforehand, and I was sort of sitting on my hands, not doing much after I graduated, and I thought, well, you know, I need to be doing something. And the school had a rundown garden at the back, and I just sort of started plucking ideas that, you know, if I run off a seed donation through the community and ask for people just packet of seeds, you know, they're fairly cheap. I could grow those seeds on this allotment and grow the food and then give it back out to the community for free. So there was a fair shortage of fresh produce that was, you know, given out through the Salvation Army and other food banks. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to give back to my community because, as I said, I needed a lot of help when I came here. And this was a perfect way for me to do it. So I gathered everything up and started asking people for seed donations, and sure enough, I had seed donations, but then I also had building materials and, you know, other bits and pieces donated, some money donated as well. And then businesses started hearing about it. So I get funded by Bunnings and Townsend Nursery, and so I get a lot of people on board now. So now I grow fresh produce and give it all out to my community, and yeah. So it stemmed from a course. It stemmed to this beautiful lifestyle that I have a chance to do good, and I have a chance to use my skills that I learned.
Lauren, you are a dead set legend. That's an official term. Hopefully you get a certificate. So congratulations again on winning this scholarship. And now, Gazelle, are you there? Hi, Gazelle.
Oh, hi.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How did you feel when you were told that you won this scholarship?
Yeah, I'm so happy, so excited. I can't express my feeling, but very, very happy.
You are also so deserving. You arrived here on boat. How many years ago was that?
I came to Australia in end of 2013 by boats. And then, I was struggling really hard because I just reunited with my daughter here in Australia. So after 4 years, I was looking for a way to just improve my English, because moving from home country and going to when going to other country, it is really difficult for a woman. And with a different culture, different language, different many things. So the basic thing and very important thing is to improve the language, which is English. So I think the best step that I have done so far is just improving my English, and then hoping to reach my final goals.
So you came from
Final goals, sorry.
Yeah, you came from Iran, and you decided that what you needed to do was to get better English skills to communicate. How did you feel? What was it that led you to want to get better English skills? I imagine you would have felt quite isolated, not being able to communicate. You know, Iranians are, you know, the Persian poets. You know, this is the way that you move through life, is through communicating. You must have felt quite isolated and not yourself, because you couldn't express yourself in a way that you normally do.
Exactly, you got the point. So it is, it is exactly like this. It's so difficult. And then one day I decided, because I want to be in an environment, I want to have a job, I want to be like a useful person here. So I just was seeking a way to improve my English, and then I went. I attend actually once a week in a church in a reservoir. So then a friend of mine told me about the press. I think I am a very, very lucky person that I have found press with all experienced teachers and staff. They gave me that power, and they motivate me more than before, because you know, they know how to act, how to behave with the people as an adult language learner. They know everything about us, and they are very like kind people and nice. So every time when I go to press, it gives me more like more power, and make me more stronger to, okay, I'm here to learn English. So that is the best place. You are very lucky, Ghazal, you are here. So this place give me that opportunity, and I'm very, very lucky. And I couldn't find any word to thank them, all my teachers, all the staff. I tried really hard to improve my English, because it is my third language. My first language is Arabic, so, and Persian. And as learning the third language, when we get older, it's more difficult, because I compare myself with my daughter. She can speak 3 languages as well, but she wasn't a struggle with learning the third language because she was a child, less than 10 years. So it was so difficult, but I need to try really hard, and I think I am on a right track right now. So I'm so happy, and thank you.
A big congratulations to you. What advice would you give to people who were lacking confidence and feeling scared about bettering themselves and getting an education? What's the advice that you would give to the people out there who are feeling the way that you did before you walked into that church and met those amazing teachers?
They need to act. How we can act before we don't if we're happy with our life as what it is, we're not gonna improve. We're not gonna change. We need to be unhappy with our current situation, and then we need to act. We need to find a way. We need to find the thing that help us to learn, to be a different person, to be a better person. And I think we need to be unhappy at the first stage, especially with the language. Yeah. And then we need to act, as I said earlier.
So Ghazal, tell us what your future goals are. So you've got your third language. Now you have a third language. What's next?
My next step?
Yes.
Actually, I want to improve my English, and then I want to be a nurse. I want to be a registered nurse. So English is for me everything, very important. I have study that to be a nurse. So I think I need to improve my English for 1 or 2 years, and then I will study nursing. And one day, hopefully, I can be a nurse, a successful nurse here in Australia.
Thank you, Gazelle. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and congratulations again. Greg Nelson. Greg Nelson, you're here with us. Let's make sure that you are unmuted. Greg Nelson was one of the 2019 scholarship winners. So, Greg, hi. It's great to have you here. Can you tell us about Eva?
Me and Eva met about 4 years ago. When I first applied for my job, it was one of my main focus to improve my reading, but also not just my reading, let myself get used to the role that I'm in. And after, I think, 12 months in my job, I kind of started focusing on improving my reading. And then that's where Eva jumped in. And ever since then, we've just been together like chalk and cheese. She pushes me when I'm feeling down and when I feel like giving up sometimes. She's always encouraging me. But really the impact on my life she's had on me is just speechless. Like sometimes I can't even put it into words.
So share with our viewers and our audience what your job is now.
I'm a transport driver, so I drive clients to their doctor's appointments and then take them home when they're done. It's offered to anyone that needs assistance, which is really great. I didn't realise, you don't really realise how much, I guess, assistance some people really need. And I just love being there and helping people. And especially the conversations you have. Mandra's a pretty small town that's probably going to be like a little mini city in a couple years' time. And some of the history and stories some of the elderly people share with me is just fantastic.
So you met Eva through Read Right Now.
Yep.
Can you explain to so you left school early, but at 26 you decided you wanted to do something to improve your reading and writing. And it sounded like it was a lot to do with your work, so that you could, so that you could enjoy your work more and you could share more and be more useful. And so that step between wanting to improve your literacy and improving your literacy was your meetings with Eva at Read Right Now. Share with everybody what Read Right Now is.
Read Right Now is basically, I didn't even know that when I first started, I didn't even know that they assisted down this way. They had personally signed Eva to me. So I'm the only person that gets tutored around here at the moment. I try and encourage other people to as well. But they're a fantastic group. They mainly try and focus on older people with just getting back to basics. I was really nervous when I first met her, thinking that reading and trying to improve my reading is going to be hard, but I just didn't realise, like, along the way how easy it got for myself. And it's just like refreshing my memory. And yeah, all the guys that I've met so far for Read Right Now are just fantastic. They're really encouraging and really push for that goal that you set for yourself.
Tell me about reading with your daughter. Tell us about your daughter. How old is she?
She's 6 now.
And what's her name?
Her name's Peyton Jane. When I first started reading with her, I tend to stop and try and figure out what the word was, what it meant, or what I was trying to say. And I could see sometimes she was really looking at me, like waiting for it. And then that's when I really started to notice, like, I've actually got to do something here and improve my reading. Not just that, but I feel like a lot of my actions reflect on the way she's been brought up. So I feel like if I'm there improving and giving it a go, well then, the sky's the limit, I guess. So I just try and encourage her and try and be that role model for her as well. Is my main goal, and reading the books is been the main focus for me since the first time I've started. I've got her Where's Wally's book at the moment. She tends to try and get that in at night when it's like, no, I want to read your storybook.
So tell me how did winning the scholarship last year impact on your life and on yourself and your view of yourself?
Heaps. As soon as I'd won that, my motivation had kind of changed. I wanted to improve a lot more. I'm doing a course for general education for adults. Is basically going back and just refreshing my memory. Kind of had some bumps on the way at the moment, but lucky I've had Eva here to push me and guide me and motivate me. Mainly the motivation part. It's been pretty hard for myself lately with the motivation, but lucky I've had her sticking by my side from day dot, because she's really pushed me and helped me along the way.
So you're going from strength to strength, and you've recently completed a CPR course. I've completed that, and I also completed I didn't really know that they had a course for baby seats as well in cars, so I've done a course for that and completed that. I'd never see myself doing anything like that. I've always been self-conscious about what other people think. Am I smart enough, or should I be doing this? Or my mind tends to wander elsewhere, and I've kind of been a socialised person. I like to socialise outdoors a lot. So that's probably one of my main reasons why my mind tend to wander a lot. But over the last, 2.5 years, I've just been completely focused on improving my literacy and my self-confidence. What a fantastic example you are. Thank you so much for joining me. And that has pretty much come to the end of our fantastic celebration today. I would like to thank, before we finish with the musical act, because I say start with a joke, end with a song. I'd really like to thank Kira Bain, Heather Hewitt and her cinematographer Ben Cunningham, Annette Foley, Senator Cash, the Australian Government Department of Education and Training, Sean Sweeney, Shane Fitzsimmons, our 2020 scholarship winners, Loran McKean, Gazelle Shahani, Chris Rowland, of course, Greg Nelson. I would like to thank Georgia and Catherine at Adult Learning, who have been amazingly supportive in putting together this extraordinary afternoon. And before we finish, I'd like to thank you all for having me in your homes and your offices and your computers. And let's finish with a number from, before I finish, we must thank our Auslan interpreters, Elisa and David. There was no person in my ear. I just realised that I'd written it down and almost forgotten. We cannot thank them. Thank you very much. Give them a round of applause if you're out there. But without further ado, let's finish off our wonderful afternoon with a performance from Nina and the Lyrebirds. Thank you.